Welcome to the Book in You, presented by Maxwell Leadership. This podcast is for anyone that's looking to get better at writing books. Alongside Dr. Tim Elmore, I'm your co-host, Jared Cagle, and I'm so excited to be here. How are you, Tim?
I'm well. Looking forward to this, Jared.
Me too. This has been a little bit of time in the making here. We've been talking about this.
We have.
Excited to talk with you about books and the process there. You are a national best-selling author of 40 books. You've been
not all 40 were bestsellers, but yes. Some
let me paint the picture now. Okay,
I'm sorry. Okay.
It's always better when you let me paint that picture of you, right? You've trained leaders all over the world in every continent. You've trained corporations such as Home Depot, Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, Cox Communications, American Eagle Outfitters. Did they give you some jeans while you were at it? I don't. Taco Bell, Delta Global, some universities that you've probably heard of: Stanford, Texas, Duke, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, and basically every pro team there is out there. Pretty amazing, including the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Was it pre or post Tom Brady?
It was pre-Tom Brady, but I got him ready for Tom Brady. I like to think that.
That's good. Yeah. I love that. You've been featured on the Huffington Post, USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes.com, CNN, Fox. You've been out there, Tim. People have been interested in your messages, which is great. I'm honored to be here with you and just be a part of this conversation as we help authors, future authors, learn how to be a part of this book writing process. Is there anything that you would say here at the top, maybe to intro the idea of this podcast and what we're doing together?
Well, Jared, you remember when you and I first talked about this months and months and months ago, we didn't feel like we had the only voice, but we thought we want to help those authors out there that feel like they're good, but maybe not great. And there's many people that feel that way. And you and I even use this phrase: we want to remove the dummy tax that we often pay when we don't know what the heck we're doing. You know, I certainly paid my dummy tax in my 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. So we thought, what if we could sit down and remove some of that and really push these authors to the front of the line?
Love it.
500,000 books every year are published, every year, in America, not the world. So 500,000 competing voices. And we just wanted to say, what if we could push those folks, kind of chutes and ladders, push them up a ladder to the top by removing some of that dummy tax. So that's our goal. We're going to do this regularly. Yeah. And we're hoping that as you listen in, listeners and viewers, you'll feel like, okay, I just got a secret that maybe others don't have to helping my book move to the front of the line.
Yeah, very important. And the book world is not exactly simple. We could say, right?
Gosh.
It's pretty complex, and there's secrets in the industry that we'd like to uncover and maybe show the audience a simpler path to learning how to be a part of that. So,
well, and you and I both know the publishing industry is ever evolving. So even what it was 10 or 15 years ago, it's not today. So we want to stay current and help you all stay current as we talk.
Yeah, so true. I'm thrilled to be a part of that. You know, it's interesting. Our stories, there's a few years in between them, but they're similar in a lot of ways. You know, you started with John several years ago, and I started with John Maxwell 10 years ago. Yeah. And the way that our stories sort of line up is pretty interesting. Tell us a little bit about your journey, starting in the 1980s, not the age you there with that, but 40 years, you know, as a part of this world. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started with John Maxwell in 1983. I was right out of college. And I was still wet behind the ears, but John saw something in me that he wanted to hire, thank God, and I wouldn't let go. You know, I just wouldn't let go. So learning well over 40 years now from John, and my first book we'll get into in just a minute started in 1984. So 40 years ago, and loved going on the journey. I was with John 20 years and then started growing leaders, and that was really an organization based on content, based on books, and then now digital content. But I have learned a couple of things along the way that I want to share. But I want you to talk about your story too. It's very similar. You're a person of faith, and talk about your story too, and how that might help this conversation.
Well, I hope. 10 years ago, I started with the organization, Maxwell's organizations, been a part of John's writing team now for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. and the process of learning how to develop content, the publishing industry and the nuances of that, learning how to collaborate on books and other content with one of the very best in the world, in John Maxwell, especially in the nonfiction space. It's been really impactful, and the learning lessons are a mile long already at this point for me. And it feels like I've been here for quite a long time until I sit with someone like you, and 4 decades is a lot longer than 1 decade. But I've certainly learned a lot along the way. And today I get to be a part of helping lead our publishing company and our content development as a company here at Maxwell Leadership, and really trying to be the tip of the spear for all that we're doing with our thought leaders, with our authors, our content contributors. We want to be the leader in leadership. And we believe that everyone deserves to be led well. And so I love that statement. Say it again. Yeah, everyone deserves to be led well. And that's really a Mark Cole axiom, if you will. And Jeff Henderson, one of our friends, sort of inspired that, or did inspire that statement. But it guides us here, you know, because everyone deserves to be led well. We want to step into the climate that we're in, and be a part of helping make a difference in the leadership of our world, our country, companies, and we're able to do that. You know,
absolutely.
The opportunities are out there, which is awesome.
Well, and listeners, one thing Jared and I talked about that I think you're going to love is, in this podcast, we wanted to expose you, and will expose you, to best-selling authors, to literary agents who can represent you, to developmental editors, where if you got a big idea but you're not sure how to lay it out, developmental editors that do that well, ghostwriters, publishers. We want to have publishers on this. So you're going to have exposure to the best, and we're going to be the brokers of that content. So this is going to be fun.
Love it. Yeah, just brokers. You know, especially me. I'm just a broker.
Well, I feel the same way.
It's going to be great. I'd love to talk about your first book.
Okay.
I'd love to kind of go back. You know, John always says you're never good the first time.
Yeah.
And
that is true.
Not to put that on you, Tim, but you're never good the first time. But it's always good, you know, when we're trying to help people along on the journey, whether they're just beginning, whether they're a couple, 3, 4 books down the road. You know, it's always good to reflect back on where we were, and then, you know, hopefully help with some insights for those that are in the same stage. Tell us about your first book. When, what, where, why, who, you know, give us a rundown a little bit.
Well, Jared, I scribbled down some notes knowing you were about to ask me that. So let me refer to my notes here. But I had an advantage jumping into my first book. I was working with John Maxwell. That's an advantage because John had already written some books. But we were both working at a church. John was the senior pastor. I was an associate. And one of my departments was the college department. So we had college students coming, and we had begun to grow. We ended up averaging about 600 in our Sunday school class on Sunday morning. So it was like a church in itself. And the denomination we both were part of came to me and said, would you write a book on how to lead young leaders? And of course, that's what I'm all about now.
That's right. That's right.
But I said yes, probably before I knew what the heck I was doing. Can I say that right now? And so I said yes. This was 1984.
Wow.
And so I wrote a book called Caring for the Called.
Okay.
Yeah. You like that? See what I did there?
I do.
So these were young adults that felt called to leadership and called to lead others. And so I did this book, and the first half of the book was instruction on how to lead young emerging leaders. But then the second half of the book was lessons you can teach them that I'd picked up being under John, but trying to translate it for the next generation. So I did the book, and it came out, and they gave it away to some young leaders to kind of seed, but then they began to sell them. Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. I want to go back and apologize to everybody that read that book. So I'm thinking, oh God, I'm so sorry. Now, I'm being facetious, but you know, I look back at that book. I've got it framed in my home office now, but it was a beginning, but it was only a beginning. But I began to learn there's a big difference between speaking to an audience and you can see their faces responding, and writing to an audience that you can only guess how they're responding.
Wow.
And I know that's cliche, but oh my gosh, it's a huge difference. You know, being on a stage, go, ooh, this isn't landing yet, or it is landing, I can keep moving. So I learned a bunch of lessons. So here's some of the lessons I learned as I wrote. I wrote down 6, okay?
Yeah,
you interrupt me along the way if you want me to double click on something or move faster, okay?
Okay.
So the first lesson I learned really is obvious, but don't you dare write a book, listeners, unless you're absolutely engrossed and passionate about that topic, because it's going to eat you alive halfway done as you go, this isn't fun anymore. It's kind of like wedding and a marriage. Ooh, the wedding's fun. Marriage, that's work. So when you get the idea, that's like the wedding. Ooh, this is awesome. I got goosebumps. Honeymoon, goosebumps. And then you go through a process and it is not fun anymore. It's like it's the difference between having a baby and parenting that baby.
Wow.
So writing a book is not for the faint of heart. You've got to be passionate about it. And let me share one more thing too. I think if you are passionate about a topic, it might make up for your lack of discipline. I think we mistake passion and discipline sometimes. If you're passionate about something, you can not be a super disciplined person, but your passion will carry you. It's like a wave that carries you. If you're not disciplined about something and you have no passion, you can just forget it right now, because you are not going to finish that book. You're going to have 5 unfinished books in your computer and talk about them on your deathbed. Let me just be honest with you.
Sure.
So make sure you choose something you're absolutely passionate about.
That's rich.
And I was passionate about this topic of young leaders and still am 40 years later.
That is so rich, Tim. And John talks about that too. Passion is the fuel for discipline.
That's right.
He said, I'm not, he would say this if he was here too. I'm not, but he would say, look at me. I'm not disciplined. I mean, look at me, my physique, But he's saying what I am is I get up every day expectant.
That's right.
And anticipating I'm excited about what I can be a part of today.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about what I do. It becomes the fuel for consistency.
That's right.
And that consistency compounds. That's really good.
Well, we have to be careful about this, don't we? Passion is a word that may be overused today. It's hyperbolic. But as I think about my own life and I think about my wife, Pam is more responsible than she is disciplined. And I'm just being honest. She's so highly responsible. She looks disciplined about everything because she wants to not let anybody down. But it's just good to know that's responsibility. That's maybe not. That's passion. Maybe that's not discipline.
Wow.
But it's just good to know. So that's idea number 1.
About the topic. Great.
The second one is something I call an idea farm. Keith Drury taught me this years ago. I think that for my first book, I learned to create a pasture, and I was a farmer. And I'm planting ideas. So I had a document that I kept that every idea that might even be remotely close to this book, belonging in this book, I want to put it in. So listeners, if you're just starting, start an idea farm that you have a location for all your ideas to reside, and you can sort out later. So right now I'm working on a new book. I have a Google Doc where every idea, quote, story, statement I heard, podcast I listened to that might fit. I've got a farm that's a pasture of acres and acres and acres. Jared, I'm doing this new book that I talked to Mark Cole about, I hope comes out into next year. But I'm telling you, it's 26 pages. Now, 20 of those pages suck, okay? They're not going to be, but you got to put a bunch of ideas in to use 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5.
Sure.
So don't you dare start down a path unless you have an idea farm, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to be driving on a road. You're going to get an idea. You're going to say, I ought to pull off to the side of the road. I need to put that in my phone. Okay, put it in my phone. It goes to the idea farm later. And now you've not lost anything in that year of processing ideas. John always says this, and I'm going to say it right now. The number 1 time waster is looking for ideas that are lost. Somewhere along the way, I lost that idea. I'm not losing any idea. And now when it's time to write up.
That's great. Okay. No, hold on. So here it is. Because what I love about this too is it's very good. Very, very practical. The thing that I really want to make sure they get is sort it out later.
Yeah, that's right.
Do not edit too soon.
Yeah.
Do not catch yourself up in the process and stop the flow of creativity because you're so concerned about it being just right the first time. 20 pages might suck. You said, let it suck.
That's right.
Write it ugly.
That's right.
Write it messy, sort it out later. Have a place for that. That's great.
It's just saved me so many times.
Love it.
All right. Idea number 3. you need to have a person or an avatar that you're writing to. And by the way, I didn't say 1,000 people. You want to sell 1,000, but have a person. This has always helped me. I did a book called 12 Huge Mistakes Parents Can Avoid. And I had a parent involved that I was thinking about when I wrote this. And by the way, this parent wasn't awful, but there are so many parents that are making mistakes because they just don't want to get it wrong.
Sure.
They don't want to have their child in therapy when they're 30.
Sure.
You know what? You're a parent. I'm a parent. Yes. So when I wrote that book, it wasn't because I thought I was a parenting expert, but I was a guy in front of about 50,000 students every year. And so many students came up and said, here's where I struggle. And I'm going, that's your mom's fault. or that your dad should have done this, but he didn't. So I was imagining, in fact, in some chapters, I wrote down, this is Susan I'm writing to now. And again, I don't think I'm perfect and I don't think Susan's horrible. But once I imagined Susan, I was thinking, I know what she's going to be asking right now. I know what she's going to be thinking right now. And it really guided my writing. It begged me to say something that if it was just hypothetical, I wasn't going to be helped too much.
That's brilliant.
So,
that.
Put a name and a person. Don Yeager even talked about this in our last retreat on this.
Yes.
And he said, I have a middle-aged coach that I'm writing to who feels like he didn't quite get it right, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that avatar or that person, have them in your mind. It's going to help you write.
Love it. Love it. Yep, absolutely.
So Jared, my next big idea that I had to learn along the way in my books I've written is make sure you're scratching an itch. So you all know what this means, but I have written stuff that I thought was cool and I was nerding out over something that nobody else is nerding out about. They're going, what the heck are you writing about, buddy? So I wanted to make sure, what problem am I solving?
Sure.
What itch am I scratching?
That's good.
So, and by the way, I think it could be a felt need or a real need, but make sure you're meeting a need.
Oh, that's good.
So as you're thinking about writing, listeners, make sure you go, this is the problem this book is solving, or this is the itch I'm scratching. That's a metaphor that may be weird to all of you, but if I know I'm scratching an itch, I know I'm going to sell some books.
I think this is such a great point because people, it's natural. We want to write about what we want to write about. The interesting thing is, earlier you talked about passion.
Yeah, that's
Now,
right.
There has to be a connection.
That's right.
With passion and felt need.
Yeah.
If there's not a felt need, you're not actually solving a problem.
Yeah.
You might sell to your mom.
That's right.
To your cousin, Jenny.
Yeah.
To your uncle, Charlie.
That's right.
But there's going to be less than 40 books sold.
And then you got a bunch in your garage now. And that's not helpful. Yeah.
Which are all for you anyway. So you,
Yeah.
you should love that. No, but it's scratch and itch is an incredible point.
Yeah.
It also has to connect to your passion.
That's right. So let me illustrate this. A number of years ago, I did a book called Artificial Maturity, and it was published by Wiley Jazzy Bass. That book was done in response to meeting educators and parents who said, kids are just different today. What is it? Is it the phone? What is it? Because, I'm talking, this is a decade ago. Artificial maturity was about this big idea. Kids today are overexposed to information far earlier than they're ready.
Sure.
But underexposed to firsthand experiences later than they're ready. We won't let them have the job. We won't let them do something scary or go overseas.
Wow.
So you can imagine what that does to a child's brain. I got a lot of information, don't have much experience. They can be cocky, arrogant. I think I know what I'm doing because I watched 7 YouTube videos and now I'm an expert. And I'm not cutting kids down. It's a world they're growing up in.
Sure.
But artificial maturity is, you might see this 10-year-old little boy who can download the latest software, knows all of his math tables, and you go, oh, what a mature little boy. And I would go, maybe, maybe not. That same kid at 16 might not be able to look an adult in the eye and have a conversation. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that book was all about, let's help kids into authentic maturity, into authentic adulthood. That book sold really well, not because I'm J.K. Rowling, I'm not, but it was scratching an itch. It was meeting a need.
Love it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just illustrating.
Point.
I can be really good, even I'm not really good, because I'm truly scratching an itch.
I love that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Couple more ideas. The next big one may sound so cliche, but be sure and outline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everybody remembers in school, your teacher said, you got to outline. You go, oh, dang it. I don't like to outline. And you kind of faked an outline to get to what you wanted to write, and double space and 100%. Use big words. Yeah, that's right. So when I say outline, outlining can actually save your butt. So let me use a little phrase that you'll remember because it rhymes. Outlining will save you, not enslave you.
Oh, that's good.
We think we're enslaved by an outline. It actually has saved me so many times. So you know what an outline is. You have your major point and then your little subpoints, okay? And then your next major point, and then your little subpoints. If you'll discipline yourself to do this, it will help you get to the goal, not keep you from getting to the goal.
So good.
So, yeah, this is just a super helpful guide. So right now I'm doing a book on managing Generation Z, and my working title is The Future Begins with Z. We've talked about this, and I think because you're such a next-gen guy,
Can't wait.
So I'm feeling like if I can keep myself outlining each chapter, it will keep me from being redundant. It will keep me moving forward. Again, it's kind of like a train track. So I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking about writing a book, don't you dare try to do it without outlining because you think I can do the first chapter. You may do the first chapter. You won't do chapter 3 well or 4 or 5. So make sure you outline.
That's good.
Okay?
There's freedom in a framework, isn't there?
That's true. Yeah. That's so true.
Love it.
And then my last big idea is to make sure to include essential ingredients. So this is actually a second cousin to the first one. Just like every painting, every masterpiece painting for that matter, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, whatever, has some primary colors in it. It has a lot of colors that are mixtures, but there's 3 primary colors, blue, red, and yellow. That's primary. I think there's some primary colors in every good chapter. And I like to give them a point for their head, a picture for their heart, and a practice for their hands. Okay, point for their head. You got to have a big idea. Here's a big idea this chapter. But then they go, I think I understand that, but could you illustrate with a story maybe? That's a picture for their heart. So cognitively, here's the big idea. And then your heart needs a picture. Here's a story about Bill and his dog or whatever it is. But, oh, now I see what you're saying. But then that's not enough. A practice for their hands. Here's a step you can take. Now, I blog regularly, and I have for 15 years. 2009 is when I first started blogging. And at that time, believe it or not, the advice I got was blog every day. So I wrote 5 blogs every week. Were all 5 great? No. It's kind of like a pastor with 3 sermons he's got to do every week. One's good.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm telling you, in blogging 5 days a week, it's like a weight room. I'm lifting weights. I'm lifting weights. And now my blogs are way better than they were back in 2009.
Yeah.
So my regular blogging has helped build the reps into my system. But I tell you what, if you read the blogs, you could see, here's my template. Give them a story, give them a stat, give them a step. So it's kind of like point for their head, picture for their heart, practice for their hands. So I lead with a story. Almost every blog, oh, here's a good story Tim used. Now I give them a stat, a statistic. Oh, this isn't just one story. 90% of us in America suffer from this deal. But then here's a step you can take. Stay on your phone only 2 hours a day or whatever it is. But that template actually helps me get to my goal. These are essential ingredients. So as you think about writing, I would say, give them a big idea, point for their head, picture for their heart, give them a story, illustrate that idea, and what's a practical step they can take. So I'll stop there, but I feel like those are ideas I wish I would have known in 1984. Yeah. Now I kind of know them.
Yes, sir.
And I think they're transferable concepts that anybody
push us to the front of the line.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you for that. That's so good. So practical. A point for the head, a picture for the heart, and a practice for the hands.
Yeah.
And, you also talked about the need to exercise.
Yeah.
And that's what the blogs were for you.
Yeah.
5 blogs a week. That's some significant weight training, if you will.
Yeah, I think so.
There's some authors, some writers out there that need to consider what's your weight room?
Yeah.
Where do you need to be consistently working on this craft, honing this craft, lifting those weights? I remember one of my first projects here as a part of the writing team was blogs and ghost writing blogs in, Mark's and John's voices. Mark Cole, our CEO, John, our founder. And that is an incredibly difficult endeavor when you have to do it week in and week out consistently. Continue to go back and consistently do it again and again and again. And, Charlie Wetzel, who hopefully we'll have on the show at some point, John's writer for many years, and you know him well. You've worked with him for a long time. He says, one of the things that he looks for in future writers is show me your body of work. Have you spent, and not just the books you've written, not just the, not just the projects you've created. Show me that you've done something for at least 2 years. And if you've done that weekly for 2 years, I know that you have the muscles that it takes to really go and really write. And there's a lot to be said for that. I don't know that, sometimes we stop ourselves from putting something out to the world because we're afraid that, we don't have the platform or, whatever. But there's a lot to be said for getting in the weight room and exercising a little bit.
And not even worrying at first who all's going to read it.
That's good.
I remember hearing one really great author say, your first draft is really for you. Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Your first draft is really for you. And it is. Now, once in a while, it may be great, but most of the time, you're not going to want to share very much. But I'm telling you, that saved me again because I'm writing. And now I schedule writing time. And Wednesday isn't just a little bit in the morning. It's all day. So listeners, think with me. You make appointments with people. Why don't you make an appointment with yourself and your tablet or your laptop?
It's good, Tim.
Wednesday is sacred. If I'm traveling on Wednesday, Melissa, my assistant, finds another day. But I'm telling you, it's the only hope I have in writing a book a year for 40 years is making sure I've got that time. So consider this, listeners. These are fundamental ideas. This is a past dribble shoot of writing, but I'm hoping that you'll
so good.
Be encouraged by it.
Awesome. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for what you brought today. I can't wait for the next episodes. Would love for you to join us. Until next time, remember, the world needs the book in you.